Thank you for being here. The title, I have an alternative title for the presentation, and that's 12 reasons that if you aren't conserving heritage buildings, you aren't really conserving energy. So it's, I got 6.5 minutes, so it's 30 seconds a reason I'm going to give you. First of all, if you're only considering energy efficiency as part of what you're measuring, you're missing the point. You're missing it needs to be in a much larger context than just how many watts of energy that light bulb is using. Second is heritage buildings were built at a time when it's traditional knowledge, at a time when designers, contractors, architects had to think about the environment. And that's why we have ceiling heights and hall widths and transoms and windows and operable windows. It was built at a time when you just couldn't flip a switch and get warmer or colder. Post-World War II, engineers decided we don't need any of that. We can just turn a switch and solve it. That's the real cause of our excess energy use today. Again, when we're only thinking about current operating cost, we're missing what's way more important. Most of you probably know about what embodied energy. Embodied energy is the energy already incorporated into the building because of what it took to extract materials from the ground, turn them into a building material, transporting them into building site, incorporating into a building, use them for 50 or 100 or 150 years, get rid of all of those are an energy expenditure. And when we're throwing away buildings, we in fact are throwing away that embodied energy, and that's embodied energy is 15 times more than the annual energy use of a building. Green gizmos are not the whole answer. There are plenty of manufacturers saying, oh, we have the answer to all of this. We have green gizmos to do it. Well, there was a thing called the Preservation Green Lab in the U.S. that did really peer-reviewed, excellent analysis, and their comparison in 3 different climates, 3 different building typologies, and they measured the difference between rehabilitating, making energy efficient a historic building, or building a new building. What they found out is it took 10 to 80 years to recover the energy cost that required to build the new building. So nearly every typology, it was more efficient, more energy efficient, in fact, to rehabilitate the existing building than to build a new green gizmo building. We did a study in the state of Utah a few years ago, and we hired as a subcontractor an engineer, geeky guy at the University of Utah, and he looked at this kind of life cycle materials use, and he did it in this fashion. He took 3 situations: rehabilitating an historic house to make it more energy efficient, to build at the edge of town a new house, and not some mansion, just a similarly sized house, or to tear down that existing building, build a new one in its place. So you can see the differences in materials consumed. That is part of energy consumption, is the materials we use vastly different when we're rehabilitating a heritage building. In the state of Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C., where I live, there was an environmental economist and an investment banker that got together, and they did some analyses, and their measure was we're going to take a 50,000 square foot warehouse, and we're going to imagine building a new one at the edge of town. We're going to imagine rehabilitating an existing one, and what are the environmental differences in those decisions. 20 to 40% reduction in vehicle miles traveled, reduction in travel-related CO2, CO2 saved of between 20,000 gallons of gasoline, embodied energy of 55,000, greenfield land preserved, 5 acres, construction debris less of 2,500 tons. When we demolish stuff, we throw it away, it has multiple negative environmental consequences. Tearing down a small 2,000 square foot house in Los Angeles, that creates 300 cubic yards of crap that goes to the landfill, and we're throwing away 900 million BTUs of energy that were embodied in that building, and that's equal to 7,800 gallons of gasoline. Now I want to take that further. That 8,000 gallons of gasoline, well, 1 gallon of gasoline is the environmental equivalent of 40 recycled aluminum cans. All of us recycle our aluminum cans, and yet we throw away buildings, not even thinking that one small building equal the last 300,000 aluminum cans we've recycled. Now, often what we think we know just isn't so. Michael Bloomberg, when he was mayor of New York, wanted to put the city on the path to be the most environmentally efficient city in the world. And good businessman that he is, he said, first of all, we have to audit where we're using energy now. So he ordered this massive audit of commercial buildings, apartment buildings in the city of New York. What was learned is contrary to what environmentalists have been telling us for decades. It was not the old buildings that were wasting the energy. Every time you moved up a decade, in fact, more energy per square foot was used, not less. The parallel to that, we looked at the energy use in historic buildings in the state of New York, energy usage per square foot in the rest of a third of the energy was being used in those historic districts than the rest of the city. Finally, about looking at Calgary. Calgary is a city in Western Canada, and they wanted a triple bottom line evaluation of the value of 4 commercial districts that had a concentration of heritage buildings. So we looked at the economic value. We looked at the base economic value as a piece of real estate of these heritage buildings, to which there was a marketplace paid a heritage premium, and then there was a heritage halo effect that buildings around those had a greater economic value. An architectural firm in Calgary looked at the environmental value, 10 million in embodied carbon, 5 million in embodied energy, 29 million in offset landfill costs. Then we looked at the social value by doing some survey work, is that overall in the city of Calgary, they were willing to pay $60 per person to maintain the character and the quality of those 4 heritage districts. 3 out of 5 people were willing to give something to make it happen. And so instead of this 400 million in economic value of the heritage buildings, those districts, in fact, were worth over $900 million. Heritage conservation is the single strategy that is simultaneously all 3 of the sustainable development elements: social responsibility, economic responsibility, environmental responsibility. Thank you all very much.